Well, welcome everyone today. We're really excited to have you here with some of our staff at the Center for Family Care to discuss how we can observe Holy Week as a family. I have my coffee, actually tea, but and hopefully you have yours and we can settle in and have a nice discussion. What we're going to do is we're going to start by talking about how we prepare ourselves for Holy Week, and then we're going to kind of get into the days of the week of Holy Week and talk about resources and stuff. And we want you all to be part of this process. So if you kind of go to the left-hand side of your screen, and there's a chat bubble with a question mark in it. That's how you can ask questions, share resources, and so feel free to do that at any point during the conversation. Depending how many we're getting or where we are in our conversation, we may or may not get to them all, but we definitely want you all to be a part of this. So we're going to begin with a prayer, and then we're each going to introduce ourselves and get started here. So Father Costa, I'll let you start.
I would like to start with the prayer of St. Ephrem, which is the primary prayer of Holy Lent. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. O Lord and Master of my life, take away from me the will to be lazy and to be sad, the desire to get ahead of other people and to boast and brag. Give me instead a pure and humble spirit, the will to be patient with other people and to love them. Let me realize my own mistakes and keep me from judging the things other people do. For you are blessed now and forever and to the ages of ages. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Well, welcome. Father Costa, you want to introduce yourself and then...
Sure. Thanks, Melissa. And Carrie, nice to see you here too. I'm Father Costa Sitaris. I guess I've been a priest since 1972 and currently am director of St. Basil Academy, a residential child care center, and director of Family Ministry, Center for Family Care. And I do a lot of things, but primarily as a priest, one of the things that brings the greatest joy and perhaps difficulty is getting through Holy Week services. And Melissa had asked us all to prepare and speak to a poignant moment of our life experience during Holy Week. And I think for me it's probably, and you think you might get used to it, but I really do not. It's Holy Thursday evening, and what for many might be the dreaded 12 Gospels. And sorry about that, everyone. It's a fax machine which hardly ever works, and here we have it going now. Good timing. Holy Thursday with the dreaded for many people 12 Gospels, which has become the most powerful of Holy Week services for me personally. And especially getting up to the 5th Gospel and just every single Gospel talking about the events in the last day of Jesus' life, and then having to stop and have a procession of the cross around the church with people kneeling. And it becomes probably even more difficult as the years go by. Perhaps it's my own age, but it's amazing that it happens each and every time. Oh my goodness, I'm going to pull the plug out. Every single time that I go through this, and I pray to God to give me the strength to do it, and I cannot absolutely imagine what Jesus went through, and Simon who helped him, and his disciples running away, and his mother being there with the other woman. So it's just one of the most powerful experiences of my life, and at the same time I feel remorse, I feel sadness, I feel pain, I feel sorrow, I feel anguish. And underneath it all is the joy of the expectation of the resurrection, knowing that Jesus suffered this for me and for each and every one of us. And then we go to the next moment of Holy Saturday morning and the announcement, the first announcement of the resurrection. So I think everyone, that's my experience that I relive and am blessed to relive each and every year.
Thank you, Father.
How about you, Melissa?
Well, I was going to turn it over to Carrie next, and we'll get back to me.
I am Carrie Pappas. I've been the wife of a priest for almost 30 years now, and my responsibility in the Center for Family Care is primarily seminarian and clergy couple care. I work with the seminarian wives and the couples at Holy Cross, and am doing some work with clergy couples. And Melissa had asked us to think about a memory of Holy Week growing up, and I'm going to go with something a little bit lighter than what Father Costa expressed, and that is Holy Week was the only week in our home where peanut butter was served. My mother would not allow us to eat peanut butter the rest of the week, the rest of the year, but during Holy Week, we ate peanut butter and saltines very regularly. And something significant about that is it was significant in that it was clear that there was something very different about Holy Week. And peanut butter was not something anybody in our house actually enjoyed eating. So it wasn't like we had a treat during Holy Week that we didn't normally have. But it signified Holy Week is different. We did not fast a lot during the rest of Lent, but during Holy Week our family fasted strictly and pretty much subsisted on peanut butter and crackers and tomato and lettuce sandwiches. And that's just one of those memories that I have growing up that I'll never forget.
Thank you, Carrie. And I'm Melissa Singranis. I'm the Associate Director for the Center for Family Care. I've been with the Archdiocese almost 13 years now, started with the Department of Youth and Young Adult Ministries. And in my life prior to the Archdiocese, I worked in early intervention, helping families with children with special needs help educate their children in the home and working together. And my background is in child development and family development. So that's a little bit about me. And when I started to think about, there were so many wonderful memories, of Holy Week. It's just a special time of year. But the one that came straight to mind and to heart when I thought about this was my first Holy Week with my son, with our son. And my husband was at seminary, and we went back to my home parish in Modesto, California, which there's something about being in your home parish because you grew up and that's what Holy Week has always sounded like, with that priest's voice, with those chanters and stuff. And so I was into a very familiar sound. But here I had this little baby kind of strapped to me the whole week, He was in the carrier that I had him, and we went to all the services. And sometimes he would fall asleep, but it was just beautiful to be praying there with my son, right on my chest the whole time, and that was really, really just beautiful to me. And on a lighter note, I think that Holy Week since then, once he started walking, have also been beautiful but challenging in many ways once they're able to move around a lot more. And so we'll talk about some of those practicalities as we get into it. So what we want to kind of dive into right now is the idea of preparation. We know that Holy Tuesday, that's the theme, is the idea of preparation, and we hear about the bridegroom and the 10 virgins awaiting the bridegroom, and the 5 of them had extra oil for their lamps, and the others didn't. And when the bridegroom came, they ran out of oil. So the idea of preparation is this idea of making sure, preparing for Holy Week so that we have enough oil to make it through. It's a tough week. It's a tough week for individuals. It's a tough week for families. It's a beautiful week, but we need to take some time to think through that week before we get into it so that we can really, really walk with Christ through Holy Week. So I want to open up that discussion right now to the idea of what are some of the things we do to prepare. And I think when we think about preparing, we think of things we do, but I also want to think about what are some things we need to set aside. And I'll open that up to Father and Carrie.
I think in preparation, Melissa, it's we gotta think about what Jesus actually went through, and really contemplate and think. And having children, I think it's got to be done on their level, absolutely. But we start with Saturday of Lazarus and Palm Sunday, and then we go through Holy Week. And the Church says in a very real way that she wants us to live through these experiences with Jesus and his disciples. So the Church says, become a disciple of Jesus and follow him. And then the hymnography says, today this happens. At Christmas, we hear, today Christ is born. On Holy Friday, on Holy Thursday night, we hear, today Jesus is hung upon the cross. So it's today. We're living in the moment, which is a real popular expression today. But the church is saying, join Jesus, be his disciple, and go with him to Bethany and the raising of Lazarus. Weep as Jesus wept. Go with him on the procession into Palm Sunday. And then Holy Week, the bridegroom services, be there and be prepared, be ready. But preparation is also a little bit in advance. And even if it's in the car ride to the church and saying, do you know what, guys, this is what's going to happen tonight. This is what it means. Holy Monday, celebrated on Palm Sunday evening. Holy Monday, Holy Tuesday, Holy Wednesday, talking about the holy oil. Coming into Holy Thursday, we had to do an emergency call one day this past week, and we had communion for the person who was homebound, and they thought the communion was from Sunday before and didn't know that the tabernacle on the altar was Holy Communion reserved for those who need it during the course of the year. And that's done at the Divine Liturgy, which commemorates, and we live with Jesus, the Last Supper of Jesus. And that commemoration is there. And the washing of the feet and the betrayal. And then Holy Thursday night, which I talked about a little bit earlier. And then Friday, and preparing, have the children there and doing the Kuvuklion, the representative tomb of Jesus. I know with our children here at St. Basil Academy, they want to be there. They want to be in the procession. They want to be part of it. They want to experience it. They're telling me we want to be around, and their school vacations are working out this year so that they will be. And then Holy Friday evening. And you know, as joyful and celebratory Palm Sunday is, the evening service of that day brings you back down to the depth of desperation and sorrow. And then as we go through the week, it's like that sadness. And then Holy Saturday morning, even during Holy Friday evening, the Engomia, the Lamentations, there's a moment in the hymnology of the church where it switches and you feel joy. It's amazing. It happens to me every year. You feel the joy, and people are actually chanting along and singing in a loud voice. I'm probably talking too much. And then going into Holy Saturday morning and the announcement of the first Anastasy, and then Holy Saturday evening. So yeah, it's a lot. And I think if we are excited about it, I think our children will be too. And I see it here with our St. Basil children.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Father. And forgive me, because I had asked you to do an overview of Holy Week, and I kind of jumped the gun, but you did that. Thank you very, very much.
Can we backtrack a little bit, Father and Melissa, to preparing for Holy Week ahead of time, especially if we have children in the home, perhaps having a family meeting a week before Holy Week begins or a few days before Holy Week begins, and talk with the family about what is going to be done differently in the home in terms of the daily rhythm in the home prior to attending services. And if we have school age and teenage children, they can actually help participate in some of the decision making. I think it's really important for parents to set certain bars for what foods are going to be offered in the home during the week, what worship services the entire family will be attending together, and what is going to be done in terms of media in the home. So with we have 3 adult children and now have grandchildren. In our home during Holy Week, the television was unplugged for the entire week, and it was simply understood that does not get turned on this week. This is a different week. Our rhythms change. Everything changes in the household. In terms of worship, what we would normally do would be, as our children got older, we would give them the choice with the bridegroom services. You need to attend at least one of the 3 bridegroom services. We want you to attend all 3, but at least one. And then as we went on throughout the rest of Holy Week, certain services, it was very clear we all attended, and then we gave our teenage children the choice, in addition to these we want you to attend 2 more of the services, and you choose which ones. And I think it's really important, especially with teens, with activities, that we encourage them to prepare ahead of time with their schoolwork, to look ahead. What assignments do they have coming up? What can they get done ahead of time so that they free up their time as much as possible during Holy Week, that they can. But I think what's really, really important here is the parents set the tone in the home. However, the parents, especially as the children get older, give the children some options and choices in terms of what they will be doing, because they still normally, unless it happens to be one of those rare weeks where they have spring break during Holy Week, they still have to go to school, they still have to do their homework, but they can also get letters from their priests about perhaps not attending school on Holy Thursday and Holy Friday, and those sorts of things. So the parents set some bars, but the children do have some choices along the way too.
Absolutely. And I think it's important, as you talked about homework and having kids work ahead and stuff, but to look at our schedules and what they're normally like week to week and say what really needs to be there. You might think, oh, an hour music class, piano lesson that my kid does, that's no big deal. It won't make a big deal. But will it be a big deal if they just don't do it that week, if you cancel it for that week? So really think about really paring down as making things as simple as you can for your family. It's not the week to be scheduling other appointments and stuff. Set this week aside separate from everything else. As somebody once said, if a prince was coming to your house or a king to visit, you would turn your schedule upside down, to accommodate. Well, we do have a prince coming, and we need to prepare accordingly. I think some of the things that we also can sometimes get caught up in is the actual preparation for Easter, the cooking, the things, the dyeing of the eggs, and all those different things. And I know sometimes I personally can find myself getting caught up in thinking, oh, I want to clean the house completely before Easter, and then it turns into not just cleaning, but I'm all of a sudden down on the floor scrubbing with a toothbrush and turned it into spring cleaning. And this isn't the week for that, We really need to simplify and think ahead and think, what things can we get done before Holy Week, and what things do we need to assign out to get done Holy Week, some of the cooking. I mean, I love, Carrie, your story of your mom and the peanut butter, and you ate very simple meals. Make a big pot of beans, and that's your food for the week. Whatever we can do to simplify and to teach our children that this is a different week, and for ourselves as well, those of us that don't have children, we need to simplify, and certainly set aside that time. Some of the other things you mentioned about unplugging the TV, we have a lot more than TV these days, and really trying to turn off all the different noise that we can. It's not possible sometimes these days to turn off our cell phones, but certain limit their use to just being phones. It might not be possible for someone with work not to ever check their email the whole week, but to limit it to what your duty is for work and not constantly be checking or on Facebook and stuff, to really pull ourselves aside from those things. But I think another thing we don't necessarily talk about is the idea of building stillness. And that's something with our society, with all the distractions we have, the social media, the phones, everything. There's a lot of noise. So how do we cultivate that silence in the home during Holy Week when that's not necessarily a comfortable state? Any thoughts on that? And I'm asking that to Father Costa and Carrie, but any of you out there, if you have any thoughts on that, feel free to send them in.
One thing I was thinking about, and it's not something we did practice, but I wish now that I could go back and practice this in our home, is that the entire family gather about 5 minutes before leaving for church and sit quietly in front of an icon depicting the event of the day for Holy Week. Mm-hmm. Just to be quiet and still before we leave for church as a way of preparing.
Yeah.
And it's very difficult for us to sit in complete silence for 5 minutes, but it's not a lot of time, and it's a very good way of preparing our hearts for what we're going to encounter in worship.
Wonderful. Are there other ways that we can prepare our children to enter into the services before we go?
I think you all have really expounded on quite a few ways. What we try to do is, in advance of Holy Week, give an explanation to the children, and even during the service, which being a priest I can do that. Yeah. But letting them know what's about to happen, if there is going to be a procession, and even engaging them in it. But again, we have a chapel here, and it's our church, so we can do these kinds of things. But if in your own home, what's the purpose of a procession? Why are we doing the procession? It's just walking around the church? No, it's being part of the whole movement of Jesus and his disciples, that we join in and become one of them. Even, I think we've talked about making the palms for Palm Sunday, but the more we can explain, there are wonderful sources out there and resources, and there are picture books of Holy Week. Melissa, you're probably going to talk about the zine on Holy Week, which is really wonderful for adults and younger people, but it's a tool that we as a parent can really and truly explain to the child and engage with them. Carrie, I love your idea of engaging the youngsters, especially as they become pre-adolescent, adolescent, and saying, what do we eat? What's the menu going to be? Making them truly a part of it. I think we try to do that here, and giving them some ownership too, and letting them feel more vividly as part of this whole life experience. And that's what it is. I think it's a blessing for us to be able to do it year after year.
I think another thing we can do in terms of our rhythm that week is everybody maybe get up 5 to 10 minutes earlier in the morning, so that at least one parent with the children, before everybody takes off for the day, can sit with the children around the breakfast table and for 5 to 10 minutes talk about, this is the significance of today during Holy Week, offering some brief prayer before everybody leaves the home. Hopefully we are offering prayer in the home before our children leave, but if we don't do that, I think it's very important, especially during Holy Week, to begin that rhythm, but also this is what we're remembering today in Christ's life, to sort of set the tone for the entire family for the day ahead.
Yeah, I think that's very important. And Father Cosa was talking about this, the Journey Through Holy Week. It's produced by the Department of Religious Education, and it really is a tremendous resource because it kind of gives you the highlights of things, the road to Pascha and stuff, and it has the icons for each day. So it's a tremendous resource. At the end of this talk, you're going to be taken to kind of a landing page where we have all these resources and places you can order them from. But this is certainly a tremendous resource that can kind of help you in your preparation. And I think one thing that's important is to remember as parents that the dialogue is more important than the answers. When we start talking with our children about Pascha, Holy Week, about God, there are going to be a lot of questions we can't answer. And that's okay. Just write those questions down, and at some point over time you can try to get them answered. But to start bringing an awareness and getting our kids to notice some things that are different in church, to bring in the senses, what are the smells of Holy Week? What are the sounds? What are the sights that are different than every Sunday church? And really starting to talk about those things. Well, what does that mean? I don't know what that means, but maybe we can find out at some point. Maybe we can ask, Father, maybe we can look it up, to really have those dialogues, to really engage in the question. And when I used to teach preschool, one of the programs, the models that they used was the idea of prepare, do, and then review. And I think that's really a very simple way to look at what we need to do with our children. Is we need to prepare them for going to church. We need to then engage them when they're in church. and then we need to review afterwards what's been happening. So it's kind of that three-step process of engaging them in the services and getting them to look around at things they can do. One of the other things that I kind of wanted to talk about is that I think that every single family is so different. And, there are going to be families that they make every single service, and that's the ideal, and that's wonderful that they do that. And Holy Week's hard. If you can't do that, don't compare yourself to others. Do what's best for your family. I have a friend who has a son who has ADHD, and it is very hard for him to attend services, and it's very, very, very difficult for him to get off of his schedule and routine. And so, what the choices they made about attending services were very different than other families and stuff. They actually had a babysitter one night, and they went together as a couple to service so their son could get sleep, and then they were able to take him later on in the week to some of the services. Their choices were different because of their son's needs. You need to look at the needs of your family. You need to talk with your spiritual father about what's best for you and your family's needs and where you are. One of the other things, here's a question that just came in. How can you encourage young adult children to attend services when they don't seem to value it like they did when they were younger in their teens?
That's a very good question, and that's
a question.
A very real question. And I would say that part of what we can do is we can say, this is what the family's doing during Holy Week. We would like you to be there. But then we have to honor the decision that the young adults make. And hopefully, if we begin some of these practices when our children are really young and cultivate them, then perhaps when they're young adults, they will still want to come. But it's very, very normal that when our children reach a certain age, they do oftentimes lose interest for a while, and then they come back. And I think not putting our children on guilt trips, not trying to shame them into attending worship, but simply to try to encourage them and to welcome them and to invite them to come. I think that's about the best that we can do. Father Costa, Melissa, do you have any other thoughts?
I would agree with you, Carrie. It's one of the pains, and we have some older parents who have adult children, and their kaimo, their pain is that they did everything. The children were in church on Sundays as growing up, and Holy Week services and everything, and now as adults and young adults, they just, the question said something about don't have the interest in or something, Melissa.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
They don't seem to value it like they did when they were younger.
That's the issue, and there's nothing we can do to make them value it. Typically, years ago, I think 20, 25 years ago, there was a model where a child went off to college, the church was disappeared in that youngster's life, they grew up, they get married, and all of a sudden they're coming back, getting married in the church, and baptizing and raising their children in the church. But I don't think that model holds today as it maybe did 25, 30 years ago. I think the issue is they don't value it. If we try as they are younger to give them the value, competition is tough out there with people's time and energy and thought process. But I think the most valuable thing we can as parents of adult children, of all children, is to pray for them and keep them in your prayers always. Mm-hmm. You just don't know what God has in mind for them and what they have in mind for themselves, but keep them in your prayers and pray for them and make opportunities available. Like Carrie said, no shame, no guilt, but say we're going to church. If they live in Timbuktu across the country somewhere, say, maybe we can join in together and be in church at the same time, and there's some kind of a bond that happens with my son and I, which is really very meaningful and very beautiful for me. So
yeah, and I'm reminded there's a quote by Bishop Irenaeus, St. Irenaeus. I believe, I don't have it in front of me, but it's something like, if your heart's in love, is if your heart's aflame with the love of God, you'll find 1,002 ways to pass that on to your child. So Father Costa's idea of just praying for them, respecting their wishes, but just falling into Holy Week and falling in love with what Holy Week is and embracing yourself in the services. And if your child lives at home, coming home and saying, gosh, can I just tell you that service was, it really touched me, but not saying, oh, I need you to go with me, but really just sharing how much you love and are strengthened from it is probably the best witness you can give. It's a hard question. Thank you for sharing it. I'm sure other people struggle with that as well. One of the other things I wanted to talk about in the idea of preparing is when we're talking about very young children, we have to recognize that it's very difficult for them to be there for all the services without anything, with just the services to engage them. And so it's always helpful to bring a bag of stuff. I'm not a big fan of bringing a bag of toys, but I think there are certainly some things that we can bring that can be helpful, and I want to share a few of them right now with you that can help engage your children. This is, and the Department of Religious Education sells this. Let me find the beginning part of it. Here we go. Here we go. Okay. So this is called the Easter Story Cube, and it's really great for very young children because it actually tells the whole story of Holy Week in this cube that just kind of evolves as you keep moving it, and it's a lot of fun for kids. That can be a very appropriate thing for them to have with them. There's other books, Orthodox books, children's Bibles, bringing those with them in their special church bag can be very helpful. Another thing that I really like, that I think is a really great idea to do, is you can actually just take some crayons, not too many, a few crayons, and blank paper, and especially, certainly, with the Gospels on Thursday, ask your child, bring them a surface to draw on. I want you to listen to the Gospels and draw pictures of them, and we're going to put together a book the next day or something, or a way to get them to engage with what's going on in the service, but then giving them something, a way to kind of keep them focused on it as well. And that's certainly a way to do it. There's also an icon coloring book that has the different icons for Holy Week that can be very, very helpful. Just different things to bring. And I think as parents, what we need to do is kind of preview the services and look for those points where we can re-engage our children, and points where we bring them in. And one of the really wonderful things I didn't introduce, if you guys see at the bottom of your screen, there's our nice logo there for the Center for Family Care. Behind that is hiding a really talented worker of ours, Mari DeVeris, and she's also a very, very talented chanter. And she actually put on the Holy Week page for us some chanting in English for some of the hymns that might be good for your kids to learn so that they can sing along. Children love singing, and getting them involved in that can be really helpful because they can think, oh, this is what I heard at home. Playing chanting music throughout the week, some of the different hymns, can be really helpful because it gives them that familiarity of what they're going to be getting in church and stuff, and it ties them in to it. Even with the icon coloring book, it's line drawings, but if you give them the icon that is for that day, you can say, all right, we're going to take this one. I want you to try to color it the color of the icons there, because they're very specific colors that are used and stuff. So there's lots of ways that you can engage them in the prayers, certainly in the prayer of St. Ephrem that happens at the end of the bridegroom services, ways to just draw them in. And that's our goal during the services, is to keep our kids, to build their engagement as they grow. To get them more and more engaged each year as they grow, as they grow, as they grow. And we start small when they're young, and then we build up from there. And one of the other things that I think you have to be careful about is children, young children, will likely need to be taken out of the service from time to time when they've just lost it. They need to walk around a little bit or something. Try to plan those. It's much better to take a child out and walk them around the church into the hall and pray with them while you're walking and keep them engaged so that they can walk around a little bit than to take them out when they've already broken down. So if you're able to do that before, great. And be very careful of kids misbehaving so that they can go into a room, a playroom. And that's what we have to be careful of, to try to get our kids out before they misbehave in order to get out. We don't want them to think their misbehavior is going to get them out of going to church. So I don't know if any of you want to comment on that any further, but those are just some strategies, some things to keep in mind.
I think as a youngster gets older, it'd be really wise for them to receive, and this could be an annual thing, to receive this book, which is truly a godsend.
Hold it up a little higher, Father Costa, by your face.
Okay.
Thank you.
How's that? How are we doing?
Great.
And it's a Holy Week service book going through the very first service of Holy Week, which is Holy Monday morning, Orthros, done on Palm Sunday evening, all the way through the Agape service, which is done on Pascha, the day of Easter. I remember when I was a youngster sitting up in the balcony of my church in Baltimore and having this little book that was about 1/4 the size of this. And it was the first attempt at an English-Greek Holy Week service book, and it would go back to this page and forward to that page and go back and trying to follow along, and I was probably a preteen, and then discovering that Father George Papadeus of blessed memory did this book, and I've recommended it to adults and saying, do it, and whatever service you attend, follow it. And as you go, there's no more rewarding an experience than doing every single one of these services and coming to its conclusion, and the fulfillment, the enrichment that you feel, and the sense of accomplishment, the sense of being with Jesus and walking with Him is just truly remarkable. It is for me as a priest, but it is for people that have done it. And maybe at a kind of like a rite of passage as a preteen, saying this is your book, maybe even do an inscription, and then as an encouragement have them come to church and follow through. We here at St. Basil, because we have more or less a captive audience, every child has their own book and they follow along, and we share in the readings of the Psalms. We share in the readings. Some of the hymns we chant, and some will turn to a child to say, recite it. So very, very important tool. And hopefully even for the adults, I know many adults in the couple of parishes that I've served, even for a short period of time, just found that such a meaningful and truly enriching experience.
Mm-hmm.
I think another way of reinforcing in the home what is going on in the worship in the church is there are paper icons available for the raising of Lazarus, the entry into Jerusalem, the bridegroom, the Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane, the betrayal, the Last Supper, the crucifixion, Jesus being taken down from the cross, and finally the resurrection. Perhaps purchasing an 8x10 frame for your home and putting it in a prominent place during Holy Week, and having those paper icons, which are available at Holy Transfiguration Monastery in Brookline in 8x10s, and changing them according to what is going on during Holy Week, with a candle always lit in front of that particular icon, and having it in a prominent place in the home where people in the house are passing when they're coming and they're going. I think that again reinforces what is going on for the day, where we are walking with Jesus throughout the week, and it's just a constant visual reminder for all of us.
Great.
People have asked what's I think Holy Confession's got to be part of. I as a priest who's got a rather busy schedule during Holy Lent would be a little bit easier to schedule, but even in preparation for Holy Week, to really have Holy Confession and schedule it with your priest, or if you've got a spiritual father, and if you don't really think about having one, and scheduling that and preparing, and there are preparation prayers for Holy Confession, questions you can ask that are very thought-provoking. sometimes we get a last-minute rush, which is really very draining on the priest. So if you can think about it and schedule it and prepare for it and have your children go. I have families that come, and it's just a beautiful thing. So we're developing, we're engaging, we're helping to prepare them for a lifetime of living in the church, which truly is what we want as parents.
So call to schedule your confessions when you get off of this webinar.
And as the wife of a priest, please schedule before Holy Week.
Yes. Other Costa, just back on that confession thing, you said you've had families come, whole families and everything. At what age do you see children coming, or, Carrie, my son's fairly young at this point and hasn't started going to confession. What age did your children start going to confession? And
what happens with us, with me, is that I think 6 or 7 they come, and of course it's only a couple of minutes, but it's just the idea of doing it. And I've got families that come twice a year, and it's pre-Lenten and pre-Christmas. I mean, during Lent, pre-Easter, and pre-Christmas, and pretty much they're rather faithful. So I think 5 or 6, and of course it's just the idea of doing it, and they see their older siblings doing it, or if they're the oldest at the time, and they grow into it. And what's interesting is that, yeah, and I have some that have gone on to college and still contact me, and we schedule confessions.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Wonderful.
Carrie, how about you?
I would say exactly the same thing, Father Costa. And I think once children are, if they're attending Orthodox church camps, usually those camps start at about 8 years old, and that's where confession becomes reinforced, and everybody around you is doing it, so there's positive peer pressure, because usually at church camps all the children end up going to confession over the course of the week or two when they're there. So then it's actually encouraged by your peers and all of those around you, and that's, I think, when it really begins to take hold, if our children are involved in those programs. But beginning them from 5 or 6 is very, very important. And the children need to see that their parents are also going to confession.
And like what Father Costa said, the idea of it's just getting to them to come the first time. It's only a couple of minutes. And I actually very vividly remember my first confession. And I remember the priest asked me, and what would you like to confess? And I said, nothing. And I was very shy and scared. And he said, well, we'll say a special prayer, for God to look over things you might have done, maybe with your brother or anything that you might have and everything. So he got me thinking about it, but it was I just remember that was the first words out of my mouth, and you could tell very clearly it was not the first time he had heard a kid say that. So, so encouraging your children to learn how to do that is very important. Another resource I actually wanted to share at the beginning of Holy Week. This is a beautiful, again, have this on the website. I don't know how well you can see this, but this is actually like plastic, and I'm not sure how many of you remember the old Shrinky Dinks. I'm not even sure if they still have them anymore, but the idea is you color in this icon, and then you trim it, and you put it in the oven, and it shrinks it down to a little ornament. And they have a packet for Holy Week. They have all the different Holy Week icons, and for Great Lent as well. But there certainly can be something fun that kids can do to start getting engaged with the sights of Holy Week. Certainly.
Another thing came to my mind as we were talking with younger children. Maybe before Holy Week, for children to decorate a special bag that is just for Holy Week. And, the parents get some markers and crosses and maybe some stencils and things like that. And that's something that the family can all do together the week before Holy Week. And again, this is a way of preparing for Holy Week. This is something very special, and that this special bag is just for you for Holy Week.
Okay, that's a great idea, because I think making that a big deal out of that, children get excited about that. Do you want to talk a little bit about some of the individual services and some of the different things that we can do as we go through Holy Week. Certainly, starting with Palm Sunday and Saturday of Lazarus, some specific things we've done with our families, and again, all of you out there are welcome to share as well. Some different practices that we've had in the home. And I know certainly one of the things that I actually learned about when I got married with Saturday of Lazarus, and that my husband's family, a tradition that they did, and I think they do it in other parts of Greece too, is they make, on Holy Saturday, they make this bread called lazarikia. Please forgive me, the sun is glaring across it, but it's little breads kind of made in the shape of a little man, and then they swaddle his hands across him. And it's something that the kids really enjoy doing. When I first saw it done, they really got into it. It's it's something to do. We have the recipe on the website for you to click on, so that's certainly fun. And I know that many of the children participate in folding palms on Saturday of Lazarus in preparation for Palm Sunday. Are there any other practices that you all have had on those days?
Yeah, for us, making the palms for Palm Sunday is very, very important and meaningful, and the children really get into it. I think once, and then afterwards, they're part of the procession in church, and that adds to it. For the first service, they're part of the procession of the Nympheos icon. As we go on, preparing them for the holy oil, the Evangelion, and then Holy Thursday, typically we dye the eggs, and that's a biggie. And I think we did in my own home growing up. Holy Thursday was the day set aside by my mother that we would dye the eggs and dye them red, and then the whole meaning of why they are red and what we do the eggs, what's the symbolism. So these are really meaningful and lifelong memories that bring the church into the home, and we now can even bring the eggs to church and have them blessed, which is a part of an Orthodox tradition too in certain areas of the world.
Mm-hmm. Are there other traditions during the week, Carrie, that your family has?
No, that's pretty much, we just would spend a lot of time in church during Holy Week. The kids would help clean, usually on Lazarus Saturday after the palms. After plating palms, children would stay and help clean the church and get it ready for Holy Week. In the parishes we've been part of, there's always been a tradition of a Good Friday retreat for children with several different hands-on stations for them, and then culminating with the afternoon Vesper service of taking Jesus down from the cross. And what my husband does in that service that I think is a beautiful tradition is he brings the sheet out that Jesus is going to be laid in, brings all the children up to the front of the church in front of the crucifix. The children hold the sheet. Then he puts Jesus into the sheet, and all of the children kiss the crucifix, and then they help cover it, and then he takes it and puts it back in the altar. And it's a way of really involving the children in that part of the service, and it's really a beautiful, meaningful thing to do. Good Friday, I think in the home, especially Good Friday and Holy Saturday being such solemn days, it's just really important. I remember growing up that a needle was never allowed to be used on Good Friday in the house. And again, this is a day like no other during the year, and we need to find ways in our homes to remember that this is a day that we primarily spend in church, and when we're home, it's a quiet day, and there's no work done on that day, and we really need to honor that.
And I think it's wonderful that so many parishes do Holy Friday retreats. If your parish doesn't, though, there's no reason you can't do something special as well. And certainly, if you can pull your kids out of school that day, if you can take that day off of work, that would be the day that you could, to do it and stuff, and spend some time at home, talking about, Holy Week, talking about Pascha and stuff, and just preparing for the resurrection. One of the things that we did last year with my son is we went to on an arts and supply store, arts and crafts supply store, and we got one of the tall, actually some of the churches may have it, we got a clear, tall votive candle. I wanted it to be plastic because our son was young, and we took the Mod Podge, decoupage, and we painted all around the outside, and we took torn up pieces of tissue paper and put them around the outside of the candle, and then we got a little icon of the resurrection and put it on the front, and then you put a glaze of the decoupage over it, and it kind of seals everything, and it takes a few hours to dry. But this was the candle that, my son, we carried to church with us, and it was wonderful because we didn't have to worry about the drippings burning him as much. I know some people will take their baptismal candles with them to church. But, and I've even seen people get the little cups that go around and decorate those and decorate a candle to bring to the Anastasia service, which can be really a beautiful thing to do, either in the home or in a Holy Friday retreat that you're doing, to really get kids involved with it.
I think one other thing that we haven't touched upon yet that's really important during Lent, and perhaps something that families can do during Holy Week, given that the 3 pillars of Lent are fasting, worship, prayer, and almsgiving, that families consider doing something together. As I pulled our adult children and asked them some of these some questions to prepare for today, and asked them what were some of their memorable memories of Holy Week, one of our kids commented that we would try to we had an Orthodox food bank in the area where we used to live and where my husband served for 11 years. And so we would try to take the entire family to the food bank at some point during Holy Week to offer ourselves there. Holy Week's a tough time to do almsgiving if you're actually going to reach out and do something, but there are opportunities. A meal could be prepared for a shut-in at church. A short visit could be made to a shut-in. There are things that we can do in regards to almsgiving during the week, and I think this is part of what we're called to do, given the fact that Jesus sacrificed himself and gave everything for us. That's the culmination on Good Friday, then in the resurrection that we celebrate Saturday night and Sunday, that we are called to give something of ourselves to. And I think finding something to do as a family during the week that is reasonable and that is doable, but reaching out and extending Christ's love to others is a very important thing also.
Definitely. Any other, like to throw out there, any questions that you have, please send them in. We're getting close to the end of our time here. We've got about 6 minutes left. So certainly if you have questions or anything you'd like to share, we'd really love to hear from you. I feel weird saying one of my favorite services because they're all just so beautiful. But there's something about, for me, Holy Saturday morning that is just so touching, and certainly really engaging for children. You've got the first announcement of the resurrection, and the priest is throwing bay leaves, sometimes rose petals, all around the church and coating the church with these. And this can be really engaging for some children, and some parishes allow the children to bring things to make holy noise, a bell or something to make a bunch of noise. Check with your priest to make sure that that's something that they do, but to bring bell noisemakers for that time, and that can be a really engaging thing to do. But it's so exciting to see. I actually went to one parish where the priest had the basket out in front of him, and he had all the children come out with the bay leaves, and he had the children grabbing and throwing the bay leaves as he was singing Arise, and it was really, really a beautiful thing to see. But knowing about these things, that they're going to be happening in the services, and telling our children about them before, and to engage them in those things, to let them know Thursday night, what's going to be happening, Friday, when we're taking Christ off the cross and nailing, those different things. Really pull children in and to let them know about that, and to be aware of that. One of my favorite memories was I got to spend, prior to us going to seminary, I got to spend a Holy Week at the seminary, just staying in the dorms. My kumbadi were living there, and I didn't have to worry about cooking because I ate in the cafeteria. It was a very peaceful week. And my godson, who was probably around 5 or 6, and I would walk over and pick him up from his house, and he and I would go to church a little bit early, and we'd sit in the church and we'd look around at all the different things there were to look at, and we'd comment about these things. And just being in the church prior to everyone getting there was really cool. And I remember on Holy Saturday morning, I took him in, and we were talking about the 3 youths in the Holy Fire, and I was telling him the story of the 3 youths in the Holy Fire, which we read that story, and then there's a beautiful hymn that goes with it at the Holy Saturday morning service. And he was listening to me, and I guess he's very into the VeggieTale he was very into the VeggieTale cartoons, and he said, "Wait a minute, Nuna," he goes, it's a golden idol and not a chocolate bunny?" Because apparently in the VeggieTale story it was a chocolate bunny. But it was really, I thought it was really beautiful that he made that connection that, oh, I've heard this story, I know it. And so when we went to read the story during the service, I said, "Listen up, this is him reading the story of the 3 youths," and he perked up to listen and stuff. So drawing them into those services is really important to do. We have a question. If your parish doesn't have a retreat on Holy Friday, what are some quiet activities to do at home? We always have lists of activities we're not allowed, but what would be appropriate activities on that day?
I would think making prospero would be a wonderful thing to do on that day, to offer for the liturgy either on Saturday morning or for the Paschal liturgy on Saturday night. I think also, Melissa, you already mentioned perhaps decorating and preparing a Paschal candle for the children to take to church would be another appropriate activity for Holy Friday around the house. I'm not sure, Father Costa, are there any kinds of rules against making prospero on Good Friday?
Well, it's a little bit tricky, but I would say it's fine. Yeah, I think I would encourage it. And the Lazarakia, because I'm not sure you do it on Holy Saturday, so it's either doing it on Holy Thursday or Holy Friday. But if you're in church for a good part of Holy Friday, you're not going to have a great deal of time.
Right.
If you know of anyone in a shut-in, in a nursing home or in an old age home, and in between services, go and visit. That would be something I think
That's a good idea for that. Yeah.
Of benefit, and going back to the almsgiving too. It's like giving to others. But I think the prospero would be a wonderful idea. Certainly not the eggs, but I think prospero would be fine.
Mm-hmm.
And then reading, okay, story reading. It's what Melissa and I think Carrie, you said. Just getting those books and doing the reading for the children and even with your preteens and teenagers, and just sharing and talking and as a parent, as an adult, sharing the experiences you had as a youngster and what the meaning was.
It's a perfect day to bring out the children's Bible and to read about the crucifixion to our children too. Yes.
That's also a nice for a children's Bible to do on a daily basis, perhaps at night during Lent, and try and get through the children's Bible each of the nights. I know I did that with my son. We used to read with him every night before going to bed, and that was a special time. We did the children's Bible, went through it, and then he's got the age where he was reading them to me. But that's important.
And I think also with, the coloring and getting kids, having them maybe color some of the things they've seen during the week, create some sort of, things to hang around the house that reminds them of what they've seen during the week would be important. It's certainly harder the younger your children are to sit still. but I think certainly by taking some of the noise out, would definitely be good. Father, and I'm asking you this, would it be appropriate as a family to go for a walk outside and,
Absolutely.
and take the Bible with you and sit outside and read it? Sometimes getting out into nature, looking at the creation God made, especially on a day when there's so many different services, getting the kids outside and walking and then maybe stopping and reading the Bible could be a way to get some of that energy out in an appropriate way. So.
Oh, absolutely. As long as it's warm enough and no snow on the ground, which here in the Northeast we've had plenty of. But yeah, absolutely. And then, the other is, if you are musically inclined, Melissa, I think you and perhaps Carrie said about children love to sing. If we can chant some of the hymns and go online. Mari's got a beautiful voice and she's very gifted as a chanter. Go on the website and sing along and learn those melodies and learn the brief hymns that are there for the Holy Week services, and encourage the children in church to sing along. I remember as a youngster my father doing it his entire life when we were in church, and he would sing along, and it's wonderful.
And I certainly would think that it would be appropriate. We put a few recordings up there of Mari chanting some of the hymns in English, but you can also some in Greek and different languages, and exploring those different things. And I know we said we want to be quiet and kind of disconnect a little from technology, but we can also appropriately use technology during the week. I mean, maybe we can find a video of a Holy Friday service to show parts of it so the kids can see what to expect and, oh, this is how this is going to happen, because those are all up and people can see. And I was just reminded. Thank you.
Yes, I was just going to say something.
I was just reminded that certainly for parents of young children, people that are unable to make services, that the Archdiocese, there's a lot of parishes out there that live broadcast their services, and I think that you can find those on the Archdiocese website via the live broadcast. So that's a very helpful thing, especially for those that can't make it to church, and it can be really a wonderful way to participate in the services when you really just can't get there. So thank you for the reminder of that. Other thoughts, questions?
Just that Holy Saturday morning, Melissa, is one of my wonderful memories, and we the children bring pots and pans and spoons, and they make noise. That first announcement, Anasta Theos, arise, O God. And the reason is, when you look at the icon of the resurrection, you see Jesus is standing there, and his arms are outreached, and he's pulling up Adam and Eve. And below him, in the dark cavernous space, are doors and chains and locks that are being broken and destroyed. And our teaching is that Jesus went into Hades and destroyed death. And that's not a quiet process. That's a very noisy thing, to destroy death and the chains and the doors, and so you want to make that noise, and that's my belief. Many of us do not as clergy, but it's just a very meaningful, wonderful thing to do, and it engages all people and young people, and makes them realize that this is happening. It's happening. Jesus is destroying death. It's not a quiet thing. It's happening, and it's a noisy thing, and it's holy noise, you called it, Melissa, and it's sacred, and it's changing the history of the salvation of humankind forever. And that's what we're talking about here. Jesus is destroying death so that we can have eternal life. What an incredible feat. What an incredible, beyond human comprehension feat.
Before we sign off here, I really do want to talk about one more service, because it's often the forgotten service for many people, and that's the Agape Vespers. And it's such a beautiful service, and all the different languages coming together, I just think are so beautiful. Father, are you able to talk about that service a little bit?
Sure, absolutely. And you know what? If children are antsy in church, I think that Holy Saturday morning is a wonderful service to come to. The Holy Friday afternoon, Apokathilos, he's taking down of the cross. I think I talked about that. And then Pascha on Sunday, the Agape Vespers, the Vespers of Love. And that just brings to life the reality of what we talked about earlier, that Christ came to destroy death and give eternal life for all of us, and that it's for all humankind. And the more people you can bring in, all age groups, to do different languages, and the reading of the gospel, the better. Again, you're getting them involved, you're getting them engaged, and you're saying this is the truth and the reality of the resurrection. That Jesus came for each and every human being throughout the world. Doesn't matter who and what you are. He came for you. And by doing that, and it's a brief service, the hymns are beautiful, that are chanted, and we do the resurrection hymn repeatedly during the service, and we have the candles. Just be careful with the wax and try not to burn anyone or yourself, but be careful with the candles. So yeah, absolutely. It's the culmination, it's the reality, it's the truth of the resurrection, and it brings it all together and says,
Another thing we can do with our children at home to help prepare for this too, reminding all of us that Jesus came to save all of humankind, is there. I just recently came across something on the web where Christ is risen, truly he is risen, was in like 120 languages. And maybe with children, teaching them how to say Christos anesti alitho in 3 or 4 different languages as part of preparing for the resurrection is sort of like a fun activity a family can do together.
Yeah, it's a tremendous resource. It's actually on the website. It's called Pascha Polyglota, and they have, I think they have like 250 different ones, and you can actually hear what they sound like. It's really a lot of fun because kids love learning other languages, and I actually enjoy it. So, so I think there's a lot that we can engage in with that. And I think that what I really want to make sure is, as we're wrapping up, like we said, we set up a resource page that has a lot of different resources on there for Holy Week to help you out. We'd love to hear from you. You can email us if you have further resources to share at familycare@goarch.org. This has been recorded, okay, and it will be up probably in about a week or so. And if you're on our listserv or like us on Facebook, you'll get notice when that happens, and you can sign up for both of those through our website at family.goarch.org. I want to thank Leadership 100 for their continuous generous support of all our ministries. They're the ones that make things like this possible. Next month, our webinar will be on Tuesday, April 29th at 1:30. We'll be hearing from Catherine Varkas on the topic of freedom and discipline in early childhood. And Catherine's a director of the Palm Harbor Montessori Teacher Education Center, and she has a master's from Holy Cross Greek Orthodox School of Theology. Make sure you're going to be getting a link to a survey. We want your feedback, and we want to hear what worked for you with this, what you'd like to see in the future, and providing you with these educational opportunities to assist you. So thank you very much. Father Costa, Carrie, do you have anything else you want to say?
God bless you all. Have a blessed Holy Week and remainder of Holy Lent, and Kalia Nasasi, have a blessed resurrection.
Amen.